What's up, everybody? My name is Fortifier, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Ready Go Gaming Show. Today, we're going to be talking about Megaman, which is exciting because we're going to get a chance to go back and talk about Capcom. Now, I know many of you, if you've been paying attention to this series or you've been a fan of the series for a little bit of time, the first ever Ready Go Gaming Show we did was about Capcom, but because I used a very pilot-style formula, we didn't really cover everything that we needed to cover. It was a very quick tidbit of information before jumping into the popular four genres of the time: platformer, beat 'em up, and then horizontal and vertical shoot 'em up. So I figured, hey, let's go ahead and add that in this time, and maybe we'll do it a little bit better, right? Does that make sense? But we're not doing it alone. We got two new speakers and then one veteran speaker. The first up is Lazarus DS. He is a streamer. He kind of streams intermittently now, but he lives in Japan. He's been our dedicated script editor for about a year and some change now. So every time you hear people talk better than they used to, it's because I can't type well, all right? I'm just a boy. That's all I am. Anyway, Lazarus is amazing. He plays a lot of hard games that I can't tolerate, and I love him to death, and he is a simply wonderful individual. So please go follow him if you get a chance, because everything that he does behind the scenes makes my job so much easier, so much easier. The second guest speaker is Lemon Pie TV, who is a former streamer, but still a very active member of Twitch, hanging out with all of us, retro guys, who took the time to record. He was very excited. He's been wanting to collaborate with me for a long time, so I said, fuck it, why not? He's here on this episode. Lovely individual. I love hanging out with him. He's just a dope guy. And then finally, we have the good Jared, who is a very active Twitch partner, which is something we don't really see around Ready Go Gaming Show that much. I think the sole exception was Mr. Scoot and Barley. Those two fine fuckers have done, a lot of behind the scenes stuff for me as well. But the good Jared is one of the newest partners that I know. Fantastic retro streamer, great voice actor, and when you hear his voice, you'll know exactly why. He's just a really fun guy, and I would strongly encourage y'all to go follow him as well. But that's enough out of me. Let's go ahead and hop into the video, talk a little bit about Megaman.
The first Ready Go Gaming Show ever released was about Capcom. For those of you who missed it, this fucking fetus didn't really know what he was doing at the time. So let's try this again. Today, we're going to be talking about Megaman. Of course, we have to start out by revisiting Megaman's roots. Hello, Capcom? That's right. We're going to be revisiting and educating you about Capcom and what led up to the sexiest blue man I've ever wanted to make out with. This episode is going to be girthy, so be ready because we're not leaving anything out. All right, so let's dig into some of this history. First of all, Capcom wasn't always known as Capcom. In 1979, Capcom was originally named IRM Corporation. And to be honest, I have no fucking clue what that stands for. Laz even looked into the Japanese Wikipedia article and it didn't have any answers. But anyway, the guy who made the company, Kenzo Sugimoto, was badass. He created IREM, and while still working at IREM, created IRM Corporation. And a spin-off from this, Sugimoto also created a winery, Nazca Corporation, those S&K goofs, and Granzella. This guy gets around.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, Kenzo Sugimoto in his own way is a Japanese treasure, because he was the major backbone for many historical periods of gaming. When we think of Japanese game developers that did it right and stood the test of time, we think Konami, Namco, IRM, Nintendo, and ultimately Capcom. But where did Capcom come from? In 1983, Sugimoto would create Capcom as a sales company for Sambi and a subsidiary known as Japan Capsule Computers. For those of you who don't know, Capcom is the shortening of Capsule and Computers. But most of you probably think it means Captain Commando, and oh boy, this fucking guy. In 1989, Capcom merged with Sambi to form the Capcom that we know and love today.
And in the early 80s, Capcom would focus on some strange games, specifically two medal games where you essentially earned medallions. Lazarus has explained it in the past, but medal games were a big deal because gambling for the most part is banned in Japan. So we'll ask him to explain it again because, we're silly Americans. We don't know nothing about, not being able to goddamn gamble none?
Oh my god, this shit again? Okay, here goes. Essentially, In Japan, it's illegal to gamble, so medal games are basically there to scratch that itch. You don't really get anything for winning the games except more medals. The medals can't be exchanged for anything. Some places have little banks where you can put the medals in and come get them out at a later date. But even then, you leave them in too long, your medals go bye-bye. It's just there to give Japanese people a way to gamble without actually gambling.
No, see, we actually knew that. We actually totally knew that. That was a goof. That was a test on you. And you know what? You're nice. You passed. I'm proud of you. The two medal games that came out from Capcom were Little League and Fever Chance, both of which were obscure, and neither of which left Capcom in a good place in terms of longevity. Luckily for them, during the late 70s to the early 80s, the golden age in your local arcade was coming to an end. Because of this, everyone was loving arcades, and many of your favorite companies, Atari, Williams, Stern, Konami, Sega, were pretty much dominating the arcade spectrum. This paved the way for people to enter this market, and Capcom was no exception. Their first game would be Vulgus, a vertical shoot-'em-up that is very similar to Namco's Xevious. But, they don't sue people in Japan, they just cast ninjutsu on them for their money. See, that's why when you beat people in Pokemon, you get their cash. The more you know, right?
Next up would be a classic, 1942. The vertical shooter that in 1986 was the 5th highest grossing arcade game in Japan and America. This game was ported to the NES where it sold over 1 million copies. So it's easy to say that this game not only established Capcom in the arcades, but also in your living room. Capcom would go on to release games for the arcade and maintain some duality by releasing ports for the NES. Examples of this would be the run-and-gun game Commando and one of the most relentless, give it to your face without apologizing, intense fuckery of a game for the NES, Ghosts and Goblins. They would also come to release Trojan, Sector Z, Bionic Commando, Sansan, XX's, Gunsmoke, and many more. But the one that stuck was Megaman. And believe it or not, it wasn't that popular. Which is fucking stupid because I love Mega Man. Seriously, this was the first game I ever played as a kid. I fucking love Mega Man. So let's break down the legendary history of the blue boy from some weird dude's basement, Mega Man. The series that would see over 100 games and become one of the most memorable platforming franchises to date.
We all know Mega Man, but did you know that Akira Kitamura went through several names that Mega Man could have been? Some of these included Mighty Kid, Knuckle Kid, and even Rainbow Battle Kid. The Rainbow one had a good chance of sticking because, after all, Mega Man would change his color depending on the weapon he received from beating a boss. But it was changed by Keiji Inafune to be Rockman. This naming convention was an homage to rock and roll, and therefore Rockman's sister got named Roll. But in America, Rockman didn't rock. At least not according to Capcom Consumer Products Division President Joe Morici. He found the title to be boring, so he changed the name for the English version to Mega Man. Also, they made him look like this. What the fuck? This guy looks like he raided a Spirit Halloween store in the 90s to be a low-card talent for the shitty area of WWE. Jesus Christ.
So, we have a name, and we have a very primitive image born from a plethora of Japanese influences, and a platform to present it on, the NES. Ooh, also, that color change, you can thank Nobuyuki Matsushima for that. The formula would be simple. The game would feature a few robot masters, each with their own weapons that had a rock, paper, scissors sort of setup. Some weapons would be useless against these bosses, while others would absolutely annihilate them. It introduced a brief concept of trial and error to understand which bosses were weak to which weapon. And with a boss rush at the end of almost every game, you would be a true robot master in the end. As the games went on, more and more mechanics were introduced, such as Rush, who would play a critical role in future titles as well. All in all, 6 NES entries were created before Mega Man would make the jump to the SNES in the 90s. With the baseline series on the NES finished, it was time to introduce an edgier Mega Man with the X series. This would also be the introduction to another key player, Zero.
And once X was created, the floodgates were open for Capcom to pretty much take whatever game they wanted to do with Mega Man. After all, he was a fucking legend for Capcom. You can even think of him as being more influential than Ryu or any of the other dudes that Capcom has spit out. Yeah, we're talking about you, Captain Commando. Sit the fuck down, nobody likes you, you're fucking trash, and you've always been trash. After X, we would see Mega Man Legends, Mega Man Battle Network, Mega Man Zero, which, hold up here for a second. I'm just gonna sit here and gush. Mega Man Zero is my favorite out of the entire franchise. If you have not picked up Mega Man Zero for the Game Boy Advance or Game Boy DS, you're a fucking lump piece of shit chode, and you need to go try them out. They're fucking amazing. But getting back to it, they also created another many spin-offs, sub-series, and compilations on a massive spread of consoles. Unlicensed games would come out of the woodworks to plant their seeds of interest, but in some cases, games were canceled. Mega Man was, is, and always will be the most memorable star for Capcom, long before other fantastic franchises would be released, long before Resident Evil, Street Fighter, which is fucking trash, or even Devil May Cry. Mega Man's moments of defeats, tears, and shame will forever stain my soul, and I will carry these memories for the rest of my life. You know, some triumphs too, but I kind of suck dick at video games.
Let's not forget, Mega Man also had massive cultural outreach. Remember this show? This is Captain N, the Game Master. Featured the adventures of Kevin Keene, who uses an NES zapper to critically wound bad guys by shooting ice-shaped Tetris blocks. Yeah. And guess who one of his N-Team members are? Mega Man! And also Simon Belmont, Kid Icarus, and a computer named Game Boy. For some reason, Mega Man looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid that bought his uniform from Wish.com, but apparently that was because the creators of the show played Mega Man with a TV that had some color issues. But apparently, it's kind of like a myth, but at least a fun one to say the least. The Blue Bomber would also get some anime exposure and a TV show in 1994 that ran for 2 seasons, much like other video game IPs such as Zelda and Mario. But in 2018, we got another fully fledged show called Mega Man Fully Charged. Check it out if you'd like. There's not much more to Mega Man. We've talked about his image, his birth, the history of Capcom, so it's time to deep dive and talk about every game that ever existed for this guy, accompanied by the commentary of a bunch of old guys who have their own great memories of it, and music that is remixed by others who were inspired by their own memories. So let's hop into it.
This is where it all began on December 17th, 1987. The first game, called Rockman, or Mega Man depending on where you lived. You play as the titular character who, again, he looks dramatically different from how he is presented on the cover of the NES game. I mean, wait, who the fuck thought that this looked good? Like, please, I cannot stress enough how bad this looks. It looks like Milton from Office Space once someone stole his fucking red swing line. So if I ever saw someone, if I ever just looked at someone ever and I thought that person not even needs to poop, that person shat themselves. That's that guy. That guy shat himself. Also, his legs. It looks like he's got. When you look at the proportions, his knee on what would be his right leg, that looks like it's actually a left leg backwards on his body, flipped around, going the other way. It's melting. Why is everything melting? Why? I mean, it's on fire. It's fair enough. It's a fucking dumpster fire. Plus, look at that. He's got a pistol. He's got a gun. It doesn't get much more American than that, folks. God dang tell you what. So this is the beginning. You, as Mega Man, DLN-001, working alongside your creator, Dr. Thomas Light, and DLN-002, Roll, who is your sister. Your nemesis is the evil Dr. Albert W. Wiley, who has a rogues gallery of 6 different robot masters who were created by Light but corrupted by Wily. Cutman, Gutsman, Iceman, Bombman, Fireman, and Elecman.
There would also be a very memorable boss in Dr. Wily's fortress, the Yellow Devil. And fuck the Yellow Devil. It's funny to go back and talk about it because you know people use the infamous NES pause trick to beat this guy. Otherwise, how the hell did they get past this asshole? Anyway, all in all, it was about getting dispatched by Dr. Light to go fuck up Dr. Wily's day, which is apparently a lesson that Dr. Wily refuses to understand because it will be the principal plot point for pretty much every single Mega Man game. As far as reception, it was not that popular. It's one of those games that had a cult classic following but sold very poorly. It did win some awards, such as the Best Console Game of the Year in 1990 at the Golden Joystick Awards, and in retrospect, as much as it didn't sell then, it still has a special place for gamers who go back and play it now. I mean, did I mention I love Mega Man?
There was also a remake of this game called Mega Man Powered Up, which was a PSP remake of the first title. Originally, it was released in the Japanese PSN, but it was never released digitally in the US. However, because it was on the PSP, it meant people the world over could check it out on a physical medium. It's presented in the chibi Japanese style, which might turn some people off, but I personally liked it. It also includes 2 new robot masters, Time Man and Oil Man, as well as several new game modes where you play as the robot masters and have various puzzle-like challenges to complete. If you want a fresh coat of paint for a direct reworking of Mega Man 1, then look no further. It's worth checking out.
The second game in the series would come out a year later. To date, Mega Man 2 is the highest grossing title, selling 1.5 million copies. It is highly regarded as one of the greatest games ever created, and for good reason. It fucking rocks. I mean, personally, I'm gonna go for Mega Man 3, but still, it fucking rocks. Dr. Wily takes the time to create his own 8 robot masters with the sole purpose of challenging Mega Man. These robots include Metal Man, Air Man, Bubble Man, Quick Man, Crash Man, Flash Man, Heat Man, and Wood Man. Also, this time around, we have some more bosses in Wily's fortress, culminating in the final boss fight against an alien. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw this, I was like, what the fuck? I need Bubbles to beat a fucking alien? Yeah, that took me a while to figure out, but even with that being a thing, this game was drop-dead fun to play. Again, this was the most successful Mega Man title and the 56th highest selling Capcom game of all time.
2 years later, a follow-up was created. The good news is that they introduced some new mechanics, which is always a great thing for a developer to do, unlike some developers that retain the same mechanics for the entire series. Capcom was somewhat aware that if they were going to release the same game repeatedly, they had to shake it up a bit. This comes in the form of Rush, a dog-like robot companion created by Dr. Light that could change forms to form springs, jets, or even an underwater submarine to help Mega Man reach otherwise impossible locations. This might not seem like much, but it offers a lot of changes in both stage design and movement decisions. But once you crack open the outer shell of Mega Man 3, you get the bad, which is the difficulty. This is considered one of the most difficult games in the Mega Man series, and for good measure. It's hard, like rock hard, and that's probably because there was some turmoil within Capcom at the time. Akira Kitamura, who oversaw the first 2 games, had just quit, and it was rushed, and you can tell. Plot-wise, Dr. Wily has claimed he'd stopped doing his nose drugs and wanted to work with Dr. Light in a project called Gamma.
But 8 robot masters created by Wily suddenly go apeshit and steal power crystals necessary to power up Gamma. You see where this is going? And to make matters worse, Dr. Wily added more Doc robots that have powers of robot masters from previous games. This is insane. At least that's what people had thought when they played this, thinking, you can just defeat the 8 masters, progress to Wily's fortress. Oh, and let's talk about robot masters. In this game, we face off against Needle Man, Magnet Man, Gemini Man, Hard Man, Top Man, Spark Man, Shadow Man, and Snake Man, who I'm pretty sure that's just Dr. Wily's nephew in a snake cosplay. That is a human. We also get a sneak peek at DLN-000 Proto Man, or Blues, who makes a very sentimental appearance in this game as Mega Man's older brother. This title sold well given its difficulty, and capped off the original trilogy of Mega Man, setting us up for many more titles in this expansive universe. Now, we are starting to get to the late era of NES, and from this point on, Mega Man games can tend to get expensive to play. So, life tip, emulation is a great idea. Or you can enjoy the Famicom releases of Rockman and still have a decent experience. Anyway, Mega Man 4 was the start of the final 3 trilogy on the NES. It had a new mechanic that was important too, the Mega Buster, which you can only use by holding down the fire button and charging up your shot. This made Buster only runs easy as long as you charge it up. This became a powerful asset, and much like many of the other improvements made, they tended to stick around. We also have an evil little fucker called Eddie, who, unless you read the manual, you probably thought he was evil, but no, he's a sweet noodle and he gives you little items. Thanks, Eddie. Plot-wise, Dr. Wily supposedly got crushed at the end of 3. Spoilers, sorry, nah, it's been like, 40 years now?
Anyway, Dr. Light gets a message from this guy who really likes facial hair called Dr. Mikhail Sergeyevich Kokzek. Fuck this guy's name. He's feeling extra Russian today and really wants to fuck up your day. He does this by creating Bright Man, Toad Man, Drill Man, Feral Man, Ring Man, Dust Man, Dive Man, and Skull Man. We kick the shit out of all of them, and holy fuck, don't kill my dad, please. Good boy, just critically affected by growing threat of communism. And Dr. Wily, who essentially was controlling him. So to recap, this is the 4th time Dr. Wily has tried some fuck shit, and now he's practically a solid set-in-stone villain like Dr. Robotnik from the Sonic series. And I promise you, this isn't the last time you will see him. All in all, this game was decent, but it wasn't that great. Not only in terms of sales, but also in overall quality and balance. Rather unfortunate because this was the first game I had ever played, and revisiting it now is underwhelming. And that says a lot when nostalgia comes into play. Sure, it was nice to have a Mega Buster, but usually after 5 games with the same skeleton, consumers really need something different. Luckily for the consumers, Capcom doesn't give a fuck, so enjoy the next few games, plebs, and give them the fucking money. This attitude was grossly evident in Mega Man 5, released in 1992. It takes place 2 months after the events of Mega Man 4. Literally 2 months after getting busted down doing dumbass shit, Dr. Wily wakes up, fries himself 2 eggs for breakfast, scratches his fucking nuts, and looks at his to-do list. What's the first thing he sees? Take over the world, naturally. This time, he does this by reprogramming Proto Man and asking him to lead an army of angry fucks, then kidnaps Dr. Light. And with this, a fresh batch of cracked out robots are unleashed. Starman, Gravity Man, Gyro Man, Stone Man, Crystal Man, Charge Man, Napalm Man, and Wave Man. Really getting ambitious now, huh? Real ambitious. But hey, same game, same name. But at least when Dr. Kokzak wasn't murdered by you, he gifted you a robotic bird named Beat that gives you items and shit. So you have Beat and you have Rush helping you out. So I mean, that's cool, right? Well, good news. Proto Man isn't being an absolute wiener face this time, and it's actually a guy called Dark Man who is great at impersonations. And of course, for the 5th time, you destroy Dr. Wily's cribs. I swear though, this guy's gotta have absolutely insane insurance deductibles. I used to sell insurance, and I'm sure they absolutely hate Mega Man for all the shit that he destroys for Dr. Wily. But I digress. Ignoring the fact that yes, Mega Man's plot is the same drawn out thing every single time, let's look at Mega Man 5 specifically. Ironically, Mega Man 5 is considered to be the easiest, but some people complain about it feeling sluggish in comparison to other titles. But for some weird reason, the game is expensive as fuck. On average, it's about $150. Most of the time, that's usually chalked up to the late era releases on a particular system. But the next game is only $50. being at triple the price of the next up game. I really don't understand why this game is expensive, but whatever. The collection industry has gone totally to shit, especially during the pandemic.
Finally, we are on to the last NES entry of the main line of games. To be honest, Mega Man 6 isn't really any different from the previous entries. Oh, also, I want to point out something that for the most part hasn't been explained: the Robot Masters. You would think that these ideas were from people at Capcom, right? Well, no. You see, most of the time, if not all of the time for the NES entries, a contest was done where you could create your own Robot Master. And that was the thought process behind the design of the characters. Mega Man 6 alone had over 200,000 suggestions, and they only chose 6 from Japan, while the last 2 were designed by North American fans. This was actually a proud tradition and gave fans the chance to basically put their ideas into the game. Anyway, lore aside, it's Mega Man 6 time. The world is done with Dr. Wily's antics throughout the years and creates a robot defense force called the Global Robot Alliance. A year later, a weird robot tournament is created, and it's hosted by a guy named Mr. X, who totally isn't Dr. Wily. Nah, I couldn't possibly be him. No, not a chance. That guy's not a doctor. That's Mr. Oh, fuck! Mr. X has 8 robot masters: Blizzard Man, Centaur Man, Flame Man, Night Man, Plant Man, Tomahawk Man, Wind Man, and Yamato Man. In terms of mechanics, the sole change was introducing these mega transformations with Rush. Essentially, you have 2 different forms that give Mega Man some powers but take away his slide ability. When you end Mr. X's plan, Dr. Wily pops out and deuces out of his fortress, which we implode, and then, check this out, then, after what, 4 years of bullshit? He goes to prison. This game wasn't that popular, and it wasn't that great because at the time, the SNES was rocking out. If you know anything about Mega Man, you know that there was a split in this series known as the X series, but we'll get there in a second. Mega Man 6 was the last NES entry and wasn't really a focus of the developers, which is probably why it's so extremely easy and lighthearted compared to the others. Plus, it wasn't even published by Capcom in the US. Ironically, Nintendo wanted to publish it because the NES was dying out. So if you look at the box for Mega Man 6, you'll find 0 attribution to Capcom in the slightest. Only in the credits.
It's 1995, a great year for the Super Nintendo. I'm talking Chrono Trigger, Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country 2. It was a year that had some gems and some absolute shithole titles. But in that year, Mega Man 7 was released. A lot of people dislike this game, but I actually personally love it. It's slower than what we're used to, but it has a lot of cool hidden power-ups and new additions to the game like the Rush shirts and the Proto Shield. Yeah, you heard me. You get to use Proto Man's shield, which doesn't do much besides block some projectiles, but still, man, you get his shield. There's also a hidden fighting game mode where you get a password at the end of the game. Unfortunately, it was rushed, short, and Keiji Inafune, who has been illustrating everything up to this point, finally said, fuck this shit, and gave it to a guy named Hayato Kaji. It's a Mega Man game, and it keeps the same fucking formula as the NES title. Taking place after Mega Man 6, Wily's in prison for crimes against humanity, tax evasion, and general debauchery. But Dr. Wily is a smart man and created 4 robot masters who could do his dumbass bidding anyway: Burst Man, Cloud Man, Junk Man, and Freeze Man. Plot says that if Wily didn't talk to them for 6 months, they would activate and search for their creator. So of course this occurs, and Mega Man is dispatched to do damage control. Along the way, he meets Bass and Treble, known as Forte and Gospel in Japan, who say, hey, no, don't do that, I'm fighting Dr. Wily too, even though I'm not really. Then Mega Man kicks the robots' asses and 4 more pop up: Spring Man, Slash Man, Shade Man, and Turbo Man. At the end of the game, and in this game alone, has this one moment where Mega Man has finally had enough of Dr. Wily's shit, literally saying, I'm gonna do what I should have done years ago. AKA Mega Man wants to paint the fortress, which is more likely gonna destruct anyway, with Wily's brains. As a kid from the 90s, I wanted nothing more than for this to happen. Fucking murder him, finally. But Mega Man's programming won't let him. Bass pops up and saves him, and we see Mega Man walk away pissed off, knowing more than likely he'll have to do all of this shit again. But at least not on the SNES.
Here we go. My favorite console of any of the retro systems, the PlayStation 1. Mega Man 8 was released for the Sega Saturn as well as the PlayStation, which is insane because Mega Man was tied to Nintendo for such a long time. Additionally, the guy in charge of producing previous Mega Man titles, Tokuro Fujiwara, decided to leave Capcom. So who would fill in the hole? Why not Keiji Inafune? You know, the guy who was in the lead illustrator for literally every single Mega Man game except for 7? Hell yeah, phone him up. In an interview, Inafune said that he was proud to sit back and help build Mega Man from a different perspective, specifically not doing the stuff he was doing before, which was still done by Hayato Kaji, Inafune's student. This game should have been awesome, especially on the consoles that it was on, but unfortunately it fell short. It was a pseudo sequel to Mega Man 7, but more often than not, Mega Man 9 is seen as the true sequel. Mega Man 8's voice acting was wacky, the innovations were minimal, and for a 32-bit console, it was underwhelming. The sole change that was added was Mega Man could use multiple power-ups, but some of them had to be purchased and only a limited amount could be set to the slots, so you had to choose wisely. In terms of story, 2 aliens are duking it out kaiju style in outer space and one of them falls to Earth. All the while, Mega Man is getting into a skirmish with Bass, who is still obsessed with beating Mega Man and gets a text from Dr. Light and says, yo dog, go check out this mysterious orb on this fucking island because I think it's bad. Okay, bye. How the fuck is that going to be story motivation? But anyhow, Mega Man goes off and explores the island to find Dr. Wily with magical purple balls. That's right, balls. You want to know who else has purple balls? The 4 Robot Masters. Frostman, Tengu Man, Clown Man, and Grenade Man. Dr. Light takes his balls and shoves them inside you, imbuing you with strength, not pregnancy. That's right, strength. Then Dr. Wily's tower appears and you fight 4 more Robot Masters, Astro Man, Sword Man, Search Man, and Aquaman. It's convoluted, it's not worth explaining, it wasn't great, and the sole pitch for it was that for the first time ever we had FMVs, which, yeah, they look kind of cool and everything, but the story just didn't make any sense even with the cool FMVs. So take it or leave it. I can leave it.
Then we had a spin-off that fits into the overall concept of the main series called Mega Man and Bass. This one played off of the subplot regarding Bass. In Japan, it was released in the Super Famicom late in the console's lifespan. Everywhere else, we had to wait for the GBA port. According to the producer, it was made to appeal to a much younger audience, and keeping the same mechanics, it didn't do too bad. For the first time in the series, you could play as a character other than Mega Man, and the story changes depending on which character you choose, either Mega Man or Bass. It also has a CD collection minigame that has information about all the robots in the series thus far. We would face 6 new robots: Dynamo Man, Cold Man, Ground Man, Pirate Man, Burner Man, and Magic Man, and 2 familiar faces would join with Astro Man and Tengu Man from Mega Man 8. The antagonist is a weird robot named King, but he's 100% created and manufactured in the shithole fortress of Dr. Wily. So we're going to be fighting Dr. Wily yet again. Here's the problem. This game is hard as fuck. It's easily one of the more difficult games, as the bosses have very unpredictable fighting patterns. Series loyalists were really thrown off by this game, but hey, it's another great game in the series.
With all the spin-offs and the X series, it was a long time before we saw another main franchise Mega Man title, especially one with the aesthetic of the NES entries from long ago. That changed with Mega Man 9, which was released in 2008, almost a decade after the previous game. It didn't have a physical release and was only available for digital download through the various digital marketplaces alive and thriving at the time, so WiiWare, PSN, and Xbox Live Arcade. In this game, robots yet again are going apeshit and Dr. Light is blamed? Wait, no. The old Santa Claus made love to Professor Oak guy with a clean and polished criminal record is definitely up to no good. Yeah, let's ignore the felon that has tried to take over the planet 8 times already. Yeah, sure, he's got nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with those 8 robot masters. Concrete Man / Woman, our first female robot master. Magma Man, Hornet Man, Jewel Man, Tornado Man, Plug Man, and Galaxy Man. Nope, sure, nothing to do with that. Oh, they even went and painted Dr. L signs before all the boss fights. Now, who does that? Dr. Light? Is that his thing? Now, that's Mr. X's thing. Anyway, Mega Man kicks their asses, and at some point during the game, specifically the 4th battle, Mega Man finds a chip that proves all robot masters have an expiration date. And this chip retains a memory imprint that states Dr. Wily promised to help these robots survive their date. But he's a total penis, so he reprogrammed him. Mega Man wants to share this information with the world, but Wily, who still is allowed to fly his saucer despite his license likely being revoked, swoops down and yoinks it straight from Mega Man's hands.
At this point, Mega Man is like, fuck, man, and goes to kill Wily again, but instead just saves Light, and yet again, Proto Man or whatever NPC of choice comes and saves him. Yay! Mega Man 9. Now, this game wasn't bad at all. In fact, for a very small period, Capcom even considered making this one a special release on an NES cartridge, but the idea died. Also, fun fact, you can make your console run like total shit if you want the original NES experience. There's a setting for it. Makes all the sprites just fuck off like they did on the NES. I mean, it's a great return to the original formula for Mega Man, especially after all that horseshit that they did prior to Mega Man 9. And the interest for the game did inspire Capcom to return to the old ways for the next 2 games. Enter Mega Man 10. 10 was no exception. It was released the same way as the previous title, and for anyone who wants to play this on console and can't download it, it is available on the Mega Man Legacy Collection too. As if you haven't given enough of your money to Capcom already. I know personally I've given way too much fucking money specifically for Mega Man Legacy Collection because I have like 7 different copies like a fucking idiot, but take my money. Now, Mega Man 10 is a great example of why Capcom keeps getting mine and everyone else's money. Mega Man 10 is awesome. You start off by finding out all the robots end up getting Robo-COVID. Now, Mega Man's sister, who's a party monster, also ends up getting Robo-COVID, and I'm sure that's not the only thing she catches, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to give everybody one guess as to who can actually solve this problem. Yes, Dr. Light. But Dr. Light's Robo-Coof machine ends up getting stolen, and I wonder who did it. We'll get to that. But for now, enter Proto Man. By now, you should know if you hear Proto Man's flute song. It's my favorite in the entire franchise out of any of the themes. I love Proto Man's flute song. So when you're done with this video, go look up the full version. It's fucking baller. Anyhow, shit's about to go horribly wrong, and horribly it does. You see, Pfizer is being made by Dr. Light, but Johnson & Johnson is being made by Dr. Wily, and Base is making sure that the vaccine is given to literally everyone, and Mega Man, being the chaotic neutral fuck that he is trying to get it too. You'll fight Blade Man, Pump Man, Commando Man, Chill Man, Sheep Man, Strike Man, Nitro Man, and Solar Man, just to find out that Wily has the VID as well. And in the kindness of his heart, meaning after he gets fucking bodied, releases the vaccine to heal everyone. Mega Man 10 was decent, but it's more of a fan service, and honestly, any further games seem to be that way. Mega Man, for the most part, as we know it, is kind of dilapidated, but it's nice to return to those graphics here and there.
Finally, we have Mega Man 11. This game is weird. Graphically, it's weird. You just remember how Sonic used to be a total fucking badass on the Genesis, and then randomly out of nowhere they made Sonic 4 and it looked kind of off? Well, yeah, Mega Man 11 did the same thing. I mean, look at this. Aesthetically, it's not horrible, but it just seems slow. Mega Man 11 starts with a flashback for Dr. Wily in Robot College. so basically MIT, where he invented the dual gear system. Dr. Light doesn't like this, because he doesn't like Dr. Wily, and in fact, there really isn't anyone who likes him. And honestly, his only company for the last few decades have been his robots, so yeah, intimacy is a little problem for little Albert. But in 2018, 10 years after the previous title, it was nice to see a return to the main series. And that double gear system, it lets Mega Man swap between two different abilities, which is nice. But I personally couldn't stand that they used this system so much, because it had them designing all the stages around it instead of allowing players to find their own ways to beat the stages. However, all the mechanics in the previous games for the most part had returned, as well as a familiar boss, with the Yellow Devil now in its Mark III iteration. The robot masters for this title were Blockman, Fuse Man, Blast Man, Acid Man, Tundra Man, Torch Man, Impact Man, and Bounce Man. It's a decent game, but I personally didn't like it. It was really just made for the 30th anniversary of Mega Man, and it would take an act of Congress and probably 10 more years before Capcom will return to this series.
All in all, the main series has been a complex effort from Capcom to keep a cash cow alive, and in those regards, it's tough. Not a lot of franchises from the NES made it to the modern era, at least not without major improvements such as Mario and Zelda. So in the end, mad props to Capcom for keeping the interest alive, even if it's just to make fans happy. But remember how we said we have like 74 games to go through? We're only getting warmed up. Next, we're looking at the spin-off that most of us chose over the main line, Mega Man X. Some of you chose it over the main line. That's okay. You missed out on Mega Man X. Mega Man Edgelord. I'm an NES guy. I'm a Gen 1er.
If you want the edgier Mega Man, or the one with way more action, look no further than Mega Man X. This was the first Mega Man game on the SNES. This series was meant to be more mature, but in its core, the X spin-off is pretty much the same concept as the original series. Plot-wise, X takes place 100 years after the original series, so what we're saying is, everyone you know is fucking dead. Dr. Kane finds some ruins of a robotic facility that was once owned by Dr. Light many years ago. In the ruins, he finds a capsule with a robot known as Mega Man X. X gets studied in their attempts to copy him, and thus the first Reploid is created. After making tons of these, Skynet takes over. Just kidding. They're called Mavericks, and they're our bad guys this time around. Mavericks are bad, okay? So we're gonna have to make a police department called the Maverick Hunters. But then Kane designs something called Sigma, who, big surprise, turns out to be a fucking Maverick too. X joins the only other surviving hunter, Zero, and we have potential for a sequel. Oh, and no more man enemies. You won't fight Pengu Man or Spark Man, but instead Chill Penguin and Spark Mandrill. This game was incredibly popular, and according to Inafune, Zero was actually supposed to be the original protagonist. But hey, it's fine. Zero became his own staple in the franchise and eventually got his own spin-off. For anyone curious, there is a PSP remake called Maverick Hunter X, and while it wasn't nearly as popular, it was still a nice homage to remaster it at the time.
Mega Man X2 continues the story, and we don't want to spoil anything, but it's a direct sequel, and you spend most of the games finding parts of this important guy who died. Zero. Hear that? Anyways, we're chasing Sigma again, and at this point, if you haven't figured it out by now, Sigma's kind of the big baddie of the X series. The game, for the most part, was the same, which concerned a lot of consumers. They felt that there wasn't anything too tremendous to make this game stand out as a sequel.
X3 was the one that really tried to branch out. Still got 8 levels, still going up against Sigma, dealing with Reploids, but they've gone to rehab and reformed their lives, tricking it up in Doppeltown. Until someone brings Maverick sauce to Doppeltown, and now Dr. Doppler, who was the probation officer for the Mavericks, is being blamed. Oh no! By the way, in X2, Sigma was really revealed to be a computer virus in his true form. So what do? Update Norton? Install that fucking McAfee browser bar? Yeah, pretty much. Upload the antivirus Upload the antivirus software and Sigma goes bye-bye. Unless you let Zero get injured, then Doppler goes bye-bye too. Now then, you can get the Zero Saber in the process. Rock the fuck on. The insane thing about this game is it was released for fucking everything. I'm talking Saturn, PS1, SNES, and it was even supposed to be on the 3DO, which is hilarious because there's a 400% chance it would have been way better than any other jank shit on the 3DO. Ironically, Saturn Power Magazine called it the worst game in the Saturn library. Yikes. That's even worse than Misc. Misc, yeah, think about that for a second. This is also the final Mega Man X game for the SNES before it hopped to more futuristic consoles.
X4 was released in the late 90s, meaning that the SNES is starting to fade into obscurity and the PS1, Saturn, and other 5th gen consoles are begging to have this game. Same people, same bad guy, same goons, except you meet Double, who apparently is a good guy. A good, wholesome dude named Double. Oh my god. Oh no, he betrayed us. Wait, was he a double agent? This is also the first game where you can play the entire game as Zero. X and Zero play very differently, with X having the same get a new shooty weapon when he beats a boss, but Zero gets somewhat Street Fighter-esque commands he can enter to do his moves, like down and square to do an ice attack, or up and square to do a shoryuken-like fire attack. As you might expect, Sigma is behind everything. Because of course he is. Mega Man X5. Double and someone you meet named Iris weren't really good enough to keep the plot going, so let's go back to Sigma. Yeah, Sigma, he was golden, might as well. He can be the Wily of this franchise. Yeah, no biggie. Let's talk Mega Man X5 because it did finally mix up some stuff. Sigma's back and Enigma is a machine that's being developed. Depending on how you handle that, it changes how your story goes. Oh, and the mechanics? Some have changed. You can get better armor, but you can also freely switch between 0 and X when selecting a stage, but you might permanently lose an equipment item, so be mindful of that. You can duck, and bullets physically stop when they hit a wall. Honestly, this was the last-ditch effort for the X series, and according to Keiji Inafune, he had very little to do with it, and he said, leave it at that. But this is Capcom, so that doesn't happen. Ever. Inafune wanted to kill off Zero and wanted to just end it, but then Capcom said, nah fam, you're my only cash cow there, Mega Boy. We can only milk old Street Fighter 2 and 3 so many times, girl. So, needless to say, the X series definitely didn't end with 5. But hey, 5 is a great game. Check it out if you get a chance.
But before we continue the X lineage, we need to take a quick break, specifically a console break. There are very few handheld X games, and we're going to talk about 2 of them. Both are nifty and have stupid names. The first is Mega Man Xtreme, spelled with an X, also known as Rockman X Cyber Mission, which takes elements and levels from Mega Man X and X2. To be honest, it's kind of cool if you enjoy Game Boy games and can handle the graphics being nuked from what you expected on the SNES. This game came out after X4. And then there was the sequel, Mega Man Xtreme 2, also known as Rockman X2 Solar Racer, that took place between X3 and X4. So if you want to bridge the gap between X1 and X2, and X3 and X4, then by all means tackle these 2 handheld titles. You're not missing out on too much, so you're not obligated to check them out, just know they exist. But now, let's hop back to the main series.
Mega Man X6, specifically on the PlayStation and, oddly enough, fucking Windows, but only in South Korea and some other Asian countries, because why not? That makes a whole fuck ton of sense. Anyhow, imagine this. Earth is fucked. So people live underground, Zero's dead, so the bromance is over. Then we start having some esoteric moments and hallucinations with some dude who looks like Zero, but isn't Zero. Then we kill the lookalike and Zero comes out. If you're curious where Mega Man Zero lineage starts, this is it. The canon ending when you fight Sigma again is once you get sent to the Shadow Realm for 102 years to play pachinko with Gandorf. This game was massively popular, way too popular for a game that had zero input from Keiji Inafune. But hey, maybe that's what they needed to get Mega Man relevant again. because for the most part, this series was a dying breed that exuded fan service and nothing more. It's okay. I mean, it is what it is. I still like it. Mega Man X7. Magically, it was 2003 and the PS2 was chugging along, but you know what wasn't? Fucking 3D models for Capcom. Just to kind of give you a perspective, the one Mega Man game that pulled it off in 3D was Mega Man Legends, also known as Mega Man 64. And we had some offshoots on that line too, but until Mega Man X7, this was the first real opportunity to let Capcom pull it out of their ass and actually give a damn. But they kind of didn't. Oh well, who didn't see that coming? The graphics might be physically appealing, but don't let the cel-shaded nonsense fool you. This game really didn't pull it off well, and it's a shame because this is supposed to be the next generation of the one spin-off that generated more games, until they decided to revert back to the main line. They tried, they really did, it just kind of, it didn't go well.
Then they mixed it up by making an RPG. Yeah, a Mega Man X RPG. You didn't see that coming, right? Command Mission is an oddity. The same team that made Breath of Fire stepped up and helped make this game, and it was pretty decent. It's rated 69% on Metacritic. One of the cooler things about this game is that if you play the GameCube version, you can hook up a GBA and have a radar scope that finds secret items for you. That's one way of making people choose the GameCube version. Until you realize that you get penalized for taking too long to beat an enemy. Yikes. That's a GameCube exclusive penalty, by the way. Double yikes. But there's a lot of new characters to use in your party, like Spider, Massimo, the two waifu characters, Cinnamon and Marimo, as well as series staples like X, Zero, and Axel. If you're an RPG fan like myself, you'll love it. If you're not, you can safely skip it.
It's time to continue this series that was practically begging to be put to pasture with X8. Many of the elements that pissed people off in X7 were totally nixed, so in some capacity this game went back to the OG way of thinking in the X series. But it was still wacky, and also would be the final game in the series. Other titles in this series included the Mega Man X collection for the GameCube and PS2, which had the first 6 games in the series in one disc, and a remake of the first game called Maverick Hunter X, where you can unlock the ability to play as series villain Vile. Honestly, at this point you hate to see it go, but you kinda want to see it go.
The Mega Man Legends series is amazing. These are the kind of games that were the norm for this era, clunky attempts at 3D that for the most part were laughable at best. But in this case, they hit all the right notes. The first game released was the titular Mega Man Legends in 1997. It's not truly the first 3D Mega Man, but it was the first that would be heavily known. The first 3D game was a subpar racing game called Mega Man Battle and Chase, but it was only released in Europe and Japan at first, and then later in one of the Mega Man collections. To be honest, we'll cover that one a little while. Right now we're talking about Mega Man Legends, and if you've ever played it, you know it's a damn good game. The audio might sound muddy sometimes, and the controls might be a little wonky, but it's a real gem on the PS1 and N64. 3D worlds, 3D movement, lock-on targeting, manual camera controls, and evasive maneuvers all made it an awesome game. The story's kinda weird though. The Earth is flooded and you play as Mega Man Volnut, who is a digger that lives with Roll Casket and her grandfather Barrel Casket. There's also a cute monkey named Data who saves your game for you, and then the antagonists, the Bonds. Tron Bon, Bon Bon, and Teasel Bon. You'll fight them a lot in various iterations and against their underlings known as Servbots. The plot itself is kind of wonky and there are tons of ruins to explore. You should take the time to play it for yourself, even if it is incredibly cheesy. The director of Mega Man even said it was his personal favorite.
Then we have the sequel, which was kinda different. Where Mega Man Legends was much more of an open-world action game, The Misadventures of Tron Bonne was a totally different beast. It had a mission-based system, and the missions would vary a lot. Sometimes it would be action levels, sometimes puzzle levels, sometimes more. You never know what was going to get thrown in next. The Servbots are heavily used in this game, and you must pay back a debt to a person who financed the Bonne family fortress, but it isn't easy. There's always a catch, and we don't want to spoil it for you, But if you want this game, be prepared to shell out a fuck ton of money. This game averages between a high 200 and low 500 on eBay, and in retro stores it's no exception. You can chalk it up to poor sales and people likely not knowing that it was tied to the Mega Man Legends, or Dash in Europe, line of games.
But oddly enough, when it was time to make a third entry in the series, they did gravitate back to the original style. The artwork is great, the voice acting sounds better this time around, and honestly it's a fun game if you want to fork out $160 for it. The usual suspects return, as do the usual family of protagonists we knew from the other game. You must find 4 keys to find the Motherlode, again. And the game is stupid plot heavy, so I don't want to ruin it for you, but if you liked Mega Man Legends 1, then you'll love Mega Man Legends 2. Enough said. Unfortunately, at that point, the series died. There was supposed to be a Mega Man Legends 3, but it fell through in 2011. It was meant to be a 3DS game, so honestly I'm not sure we lost out on too much, but I would have loved to see another entry in the series. Great franchises tend to get sent to handhelds to die, and very few companies can manage to keep both the console and handheld markets going strong with legacy franchises. Speaking of handhelds, that's pretty much what the next franchise is known for, starting on the Game Boy Advance in 2001.
Mega Man Battle Network was the first title in a long stream of games for the handheld medium. It's essentially a real-time tactical role-playing game created when collectible card games were the shit. I'm talking Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I still fucking play to this day, baseball cards, you know, the premise that made Metal Gear Acid and Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories at some point, which were both shit games. Yeah, exactly. Those two fucking games. Yeah, this game popped up before those two. So Battle Network is cool in a way because it does use the whole card collection aspect by giving it a facelift as battle chips held in folders instead of decks. You get to play as Lan Hikari, who logs into the net as Megaman.exe and does a bunch of monotonous tasks that are somehow justified to create a plot, which in my opinion took away from the game more so than it added. I mean, to get back into it, the combat was actually pretty good. I mean, you had to balance motion, combat, all at the same time, and once you got used to it, it was actually pretty fun. It's just all so fucking odd compared to the rest of the franchise. However, if you do enjoy deck building RPGs, then you're set. There's a remake/crossover that happened called Rockman EXE Operating Shooting Star, which has Megaman.exe and Star Force Mega Man, but it was only released in Japan, like anything ever fucking cool. And it's pretty much the same, but it's on the DS and has a crossover with Mega Man Star Force, but that's another spinoff we'll get to in a moment.
Mega Man Battle Network 2. The sequel was pretty much the same game, but Battle Network 2 offered a little bit more quality of life improvements from the previous game. If you know what the first game is like, then you know what the second game is like, and ironically, it's considered one of the best in the series. Not much more to say about it.
Number 3 is where it got weird. In Japan, Battle Network 3 was released simply as Battle Network 3. Then they released a black version that got rid of tons of bugs and issues the game had, and even threw in some optional bosses and quality of life improvements. But in the West, we got blue and white versions of Battle Network 3. This time, Wily's involved, and there's a unique way of leveling up your chips, but it's the same overall game style. This time around, you can break up your chips into different kind of chips, and it's really fucking confusing. More than likely, if you've made it this far in the franchise, you understand how it's played. But if you're new to the series, then good fucking luck, because it's only going to get more convoluted from here.
Battle Network 4 again was broken down into 2 versions, Red Sun and Blue Moon. They differ in story and in gameplay details, and this time, the game is compatible with the e-reader, which, if you're unfamiliar, was a barcode scanner for the GBA. If you get the cards that it could read, you could unlock tons of stuff, such as unlockable content, secret levels, or even minigames. For example, an NES game could fit on one of these cards, but in the case of Mega Man, many of the cards were for Japanese consumers only. Sorry. This game differs tremendously in some ways. For starters, to unlock the full game, you need to beat it 3 times. There's also an emotion window, and if Mega Man gets pissed, he can wreck shit like a barbarian.
Battle Network 5 was another tired attempt at keeping this running. Again, following the same sweep of Pokemon and making two different games. You had Mega Man Battle Network 5, Team Proto Man, or Team Colonel, or if you were feeling real fucking spicy, you could get the DS version, Double Team DS. Which is the dumbest fucking name I've ever heard. It was also the same game as before, with little to no changes outside of things that slightly affected the gameplay, if you could even call it that. The same would be true for Battle Network 6, which had two releases, Cybeast Gregar and Cybeast Falzar. It would be the end of the line of games for the GBA, and thankfully the end of the main line of Battle Network. A very, very niche series that, in my opinion, is just okay. I can leave them.
Oh, you think that it's over?
Wait, there's more?
You know damn well there's more. It's the GBA.
Oh god, please make it stop. Maybe some lube or something. Fuck.
They never stop. It never stops. They never stop.
Capcom, bro. Capcom. And boy did they make some fucking spin-offs. The first of which was on the GameCube. It was called Megaman Network Transmission, and it was released in 2003, and it was a game that was hard as fuck for no apparent reason. It's probably because they tried to do a mix of the card management with traditional Mega Man gameplay, which if you're asking me is a fucking cocktail of bullshit that ruins the experience for the gamer. Think Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories. There's simply too much bullshit going on to deal with it. Plus, it fits into the storyline of the events after Battle Network 1, so technically this spin-off is the second game of the series if you really want to go that route. It was not positively received.
Which is probably why they hopped back to the GBA with Mega Man Battle Chip Challenge, which ironically was one of the few games released in the Mega Man universe for the Wonder Swan color. If you don't know what the Wonder Swan is, it's pretty much a Game Boy that was put in a tiny, confusing fucking box. This is what it looks like. It was made by Gunpei Yokoi, the original creator of the Game Boy, after he left Nintendo and before his untimely death. The thing that stinks about the Wonder Swan original is that it had the same issues as the Game Boy, no backlight. Obviously, that was fixed in the future iterations. Back to the game! It's a literally useless title. You just combat the computer and pre-made decks. It was a critical failure.
But while that was a critical failure, that didn't stop Tosi from developing another game in the series that was total garbage by the name of Rockman EXE. As the title implies, it was only released in Japan, which is probably a good thing because this game is a big, giant pile of fuck. But in the spin-off realm, it seemed like Japan-only games were starting to be a good idea. Rockman EXE 4.5 Real Operation was an example of that. Add in a little fan service, and you have a game where you need the e-reader chips that you used in real life that came with the toy line, and a shithole game on the GBA only in Japan. And because it was mildly successful in Japan, they had to make an arcade game out of it. It was called Rockman EXE Battle Chip Stadium. And you would battle other people in the arcades for their own chips or get premium chips from winning battles. It's a stupid concept, but culturally it was kind of dope. It was even featured in a few episodes of the Rockman EXE Beast Plus anime known as Battle Station. EXE wasn't exactly going anywhere in the US, as we've said, but in Japan it was a badass time for fans. So much so that they had to release a fucking phone game called Rockman EXE Phantom of Network, which then had its own sequel, Legend of Network. The last little piece of the puzzle would be called Rockman EXE, the Metal Operation, and it was yet again another replicant of Battle Station in the arcades. That was a fucking time and a half.
Yeah, that was a crapshoot. At least there aren't any more... Hold on. Someone's at my door. What? Why? Why? Why the fuck?
It's okay, my man. I'm here to help. I'm an expert. I've only died 3 times.
Why are you in my room? That's my beanbag.
It's fine. Everything is fine. I'll just talk about my games and we'll be good to go.
Why do so many people know my address, and how the fuck do you get to Japan so quickly?
So check it out. I'm Zero, and I'm from Mega Man X, which is probably, in your opinion, one of the coolest games ever made. But did you know I had my own line of games? That's right. My game started on the GBA, but don't worry, I barely broke a sweat when I saw it on the platform because it was absolutely awesome. I was able to stop the new generation Reploids going Maverick with my friends Sail and Passy. C&P if you will. But don't be weird. I was able to do missions on behalf of the Resistance to help C&P, and then we tried to find X. It didn't work so well until I found Copy X, and then I kicked his ass. I took like a year. I killed Copy X, and I'm not friends with C&P anymore. I had to deal with this goofy guy named El Pizo. I wrecked his army, and the legendary Dark Elf was released. Bogus, convoluted, I know, but trust me, it gets better. In my third adventure, I linked up with CL, who patented a system, so I headed to find the Dark Elf. But I found Omega, and I murdered him, and I passed out. I have an issue with that, but I'm seeing a doctor.
Okay, we get it. It's a convoluted storyline that doesn't really make any sense. Oh god, he passed out because I moved too quickly for him. That's Zero for you. Anyway, there's a fourth game in the Zero series, and since it wasn't mentioned, Zero is very much a platformer at heart, and is more reminiscent of the X series if it was ported to the GBA. It strives to have that edgy SNES feel, but unfortunately it doesn't quite pull it off. I'm not knocking it, but it's not really that great compared to other Mega Man series, but at least the games are fun to play. So just approach them as Mega Man X spin-offs and you're golden. But you know how Capcom loves their spin-offs to their spin-offs to their spin-offs, right? Well, they did that with ZX, a notoriously difficult spin-off to the Zero series that was for the DS. It's set 200 years after Zero 4, and it looks really good. Now, if there's anything I can say is that this DS game kicked ass, and honestly, if they would have waited and made a Zero Series game for the DS, you can see it would look better 12-fold. This game is really, really fun, and it had a sequel in ZX Advent, which is also a notable title. Trust me, play these games.
Well, we went through 3 different series that were all focused on handhelds, but there is one more. I know. Capcom really thought they stood a chance at keeping Mega Man afloat on the handhelds. If you're wondering why they never made them on the consoles, well, you kinda know. They had this strange infatuation with smaller games, maybe because they could make them quicker, but the final spin-off series was Mega Man Star Force. The first game, Mega Man Star Force, was released on the DS in 2006. It tied into an anime and a manga and was really hyped up. But much like Battle Network, they released the games in not 1, not 2, but 3 different fucking iterations. You had Star Force Pegasus, Star Force Leo, and Star Force Dragon. And it gets even more convoluted because Star Force Dragon was a fucking EB Games exclusive. Think of it as an over-the-shoulder third-person version of Battle Network, which sounds fucking awful because it is. It's just an action RPG, and if you thought Battle Network was annoying, then maybe you should try this one instead.
There was a sequel with Star Force 2, and it's slightly better, but was more so made to coincide with the 20th anniversary of Mega Man. But this time, it's a little more 3D than before. Ooh. There are tons of cards, tons of weapons, and in traditional format, it was released on the 3DS as Zerker X Ninja or Zerker X Saurian. Not tired of the bullshit yet? Try Star Force 3, known as Black Ace or Red Joker, which was another iteration. Same principle, same stupid, overcomplicated mechanics that drew people away and retained a very niche group of folks. And the next game, EXE Operate Shooting Star, which was the remake of the first that basically killed the series. And for good reason, that one sucked.
Now it's time to talk about the handheld versions of the mainline NES games. They're kinda different, but not really. Picture the NES games in monochrome, but with much smaller screen real estate. As such, we won't be highlighting the Robot Masters like before, and just talk about some of the differences, if there are any. First up was Mega Man 1 reimagined for the Game Boy as Dr. Wily's Revenge. Ironically, this was Capcom's first Mega Man game to ever be outsourced to another company. In this case, Minakuchi Engineering, who for the most part did a lot of porting to the Game Boy for Capcom. Examples of other games they ported include Solar Striker, Bionic Commando, Megaman X3, and Knights of the Round. But in Dr. Wily's Revenge, known as Rockman World in Japan, you go through 4 levels fighting revived robot masters before fighting Mega Man Killer Enker.
For those who are curious, the Mega Man Killers are the RKN series robots designed to be the boss of the Game Boy games. I've beaten it personally and gave 40 a copy. The game isn't that bad either, it's just hard. Ironically, it sold well, which is something that couldn't be said about Mega Man 1. I guess at the time, the concept of the handheld games was just better.
Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy was released in 1991. It took elements from Mega Man 2 and 3 and combined them to form a path to fighting Robot Killer Quint. You fight 4 masters from 2 and 4 masters from 3, and then you're set to beat the game. This one was developed by a company named Japan System House, and honestly, we can't find anything about them. We do know that they rebranded as Biox, but good luck finding anything about them. Even Moby Games doesn't talk about them very much. The game was a critical failure, average at best, and that's why Capcom never returned to them again. Instead, they returned to Minakuchi Engineering as the go-to for developing the titles, which they did with Mega Man 3. This time we took elements from 3 and 4. They have the same mechanics, same storyline plot progression, a new RKN named Punk, and thankfully, because Minakuchi has an idea how the fuck to make games, this one was substantially better than 2.
Then we had Mega Man 4, which took elements from 4 and 5, again fucking over Dr. Wily.
This time, though, you had the ability to purchase items with power chips, which was cool and a unique system that wasn't in the other entries. And to spice it up a bit, there was an 8-boss battle rush like before. So essentially, you had a Mega Man title on the Game Boy with new mechanics that made sense. Not bad. Not bad at all, Capcom, or, well, Minakuchi. Honestly, this game captured the spirit of Mega Man pretty fucking well.
Then we had Mega Man 5, which was radically different. New enemies, new allies, new default weapons even. This was big. For the first time in a long time, the Mega Buster was out and the Mega Arm was in. And Rush was traded out for Tango, a green robotic cat. With new robot masters named after planets, and a return of all 4 robot killers from the previous games before a super robot named Sunstar comes out and tries to murder you. But that doesn't happen because you wrangle his dingle, and then you go after Wily before he runs off. With the success of the previous games, it was no surprise they wanted to continue this parallel line of side stories from the main series. And they did that with, let me see here, Mega Man? Wait. Mega Man? Yeah, Mega Man.
This time it's on the Sega Game Gear. This is very unique because only a handful of games were released from Capcom in the Mega Man universe on a Sega console. Mega Man, which for all intents and purposes should be Mega Man 6, uses bosses and stages from Mega Man 4 and 5. In this one, Rush comes back and you get no continues. But Dr. Cossack is referenced as the antagonist, so it was a nice homage to that. US Gold published it and Freestyle developed it. Because it was on the Game Gear, an 8-bit handheld console, it was essentially an NES game on a Sega console. Which is fine because it was awesome.
Then they decided to hop to the fucking Wonder Swan. Yeah, this is Rockman and Forte. Midai Karan no Chosensha, which means Challenger from the Future. It's based on Rockman and Forte, which ironically was released for the GBA anyway. Mega Man plays the same, base is different. The Robot Masters have 0 iframes, and because the Wonder Swan has those weird-ass controls, it was kind of a crapshoot. Plus, for some reason, not all the bosses surrender their weapons, which is a big no-no for Mega Man games. It's oftentimes considered to be the worst Mega Man game ever created. No bullshit. The worst.
And that's saying a lot because we have another fucking zinger for you coming up that seems like it would give this game a run for its money, but no. This is bad. And it makes me so fucking mad that it exists.
Whoa. Hey, you okay?
No. I'm mad.
Like, yeah, you need to burn off some steam?
Like I need to punch something.
Well, that's an option, but come over here for a sec, all of you. Capcom milked the titty of Mega Man religiously for 35 plus years. And in the time where mascots were known for doing awesome things on platforms, they also had a penchant to do sports, or even beat the shit out of people in fighting games. That's the next little spin-off series, the fighting games. The first one was called The Power Battle, and it was released in arcades in Japan in 1995. Yes, a full-length game where you don't have to deal with stupid-ass chips or anything, and it rocks, literally. In this game, you go through Robot Masters taking on stories from the NES games. These stories include 1 and 2, 3 to 6, and finally Mega Man 7. If you know the weaknesses, you can annihilate this game, otherwise it's pretty hard. It was also the first Mega Man game to be on that shitty Steam clone called GameTap. Eventually it would be released on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox, but it was obscure for a long time. The sequel, Mega Man 2 The Power Fighters, was again an arcade title, but this time was released worldwide. It's canon, and it ties into Mega Man 8 and alludes to how Zero was created for Mega Man X. Again, it's a badass game, and you can play as Mega Man, Proto Man, Bass, or Duo, with Duo being the new guy. You might recognize him from Mega Man 8. It's a cool game. Trust me, play it. It also had a Neo Geo Pocket Color release. Final game in this little punch fest was Rockman Battle & Fighters. Weird name, shitty game if you happen to own a Neo Geo Pocket Color. It has the same protagonist, but this overall experience was run to the ground. It's a shame too. It would have been nice to see 3 different arcade fighters for Mega Man, but it's Capcom, they like to mix it up, and most of the time it goes straight down the shitter. Oh well. But hey, at least they managed to sneak Mega Man in for most of the Marvel vs. Capcom series, at least up till Infinite. No clue why he isn't in that one, but some variation of Mega Man was definitely in the first 3.
Well, that's it, right? Well, no, it's not. There are a few more. Some of these are novelties, some are radical, and some are shit. These are the other games, released unrelated to really anything and purely fan service 101. Starting with... Oh God. Jesus. No. Oh, fuck. Oh God. Oh, no. Oh God. This is exactly what you think it is. It's Mega Man for MS-DOS. And I tell you what, God dang it, boy, howdy, why, I'll tell you what, when I say I'd rather take my urethra and shove a piece of god dang burning charcoal up there and birth a diamond with how god dang narrow my urethra gets playing Mega Man god dang DOS up. Yep, that's what this game does, Bobby. It's sort of based on Mega Man 1, but not really because there were only 3 Robot Masters, Dynaman, Sonic Man, and Volt Man. It's slow, shit, and is recognized as one of the most unplayable, unfun, and worst Mega Man games out there. It was made by Rosner Labs, who did exceptionally shit DOS ports of good games, such as Mega Man X, Super Street Fighter 2, and such. But this game was horrid. Yeah, I'm beyond shocked that they let Rosner touch anything else Capcom related after this abhorrent monstrosity came to light. Avoid this. Trust me. And the sequel, 3? Don't even. Just no.
On a lighter note, there was a business simulation title called Wily and Light's Rockboard. That's Paradise. Yep. That's the fucking name. Basically, it's Mega Man Monopoly, and you can choose characters from the original Mega Man series, such as Roll, Dr. Light, Dr. Wily, Dr. Coxsack, and Kalinka. Keiji Ifune had little to no input on it, so yeah, this was 100% milking that fucking titty here, and it sucked. But you know what doesn't suck? Kind of, sorta. Soccer games, I guess, which is exactly why Capcom asked Sun L to develop Mega Man Soccer for the SNES. It's kind of based on Mega Man 4, and Mega Man is sent to beat the Robot Masters that interrupted a soccer game. Interesting. Okay, this game has no ending. It goes on forever, so fuck it.
Like racing games, we got racing games. Just one, though, Mega Man Battle & Chase. Essentially, you race with characters from the Mega Man series, and with 8 racetracks, it doesn't look so bad. There's only one way to play this game in North America, and that's to unlock it as a bonus game in the Mega Man X collection. Do you like rail shooters with movies? You can Enjoy that with Super Adventure Rockman in Japan for the PlayStation and Saturn. It's so bad that Inafune disowned the game. Yep, yeah, that's right. It dishonored his family. He disowned it.
But then out of nowhere, some Singaporean dude released a game that shows what happens when Street Fighter and Mega Man have a baby with Street Fighter X Mega Man. This game is fucking awesome. Basically, instead of robot masters, you fight Street Fighter characters. And also, since Capcom isn't total cocks about people making fan games, they not only allowed the guy to create it, but they also published it. That's gotta be a huge win. That dude's life must be fulfilled. To have your fan game be published by Capcom? Good on you, dude. Finally, we get to where the remakes and collections come into play. Trust me when I say Mega Man games are getting more and more expensive, so these compilations are a great way to relive your childhood memories without destroying your wallet. First up is a remake of Mega Man 1 through 3 called Mega Man: The Wily Wars. It's a well-known title where you relive your previous adventures in any order you select. In other words, it's the first 3 games on a 16-bit platform. Unfortunately, these ports are considered inferior because they're much slower than the original titles they're based off of. But it's still important because it encompasses the first true collection of games on a platform they were never designed for. There is no SNES Wily Wars, but here it is on the Genesis. If you want an even more powerful version, you could buy a Japanese PS1 and buy the Rockman Complete Works, which has Rockman 1 through 6 in it. There was also a special box that included X7, but again, this is only in Japan.
If you're wanting to enjoy them on the PS2, GameCube, or Xbox, then opt in for the Mega Man Anniversary Collection. I have it on all 3 consoles. It's the English remake of Rockman Complete Works, Mega Man 7 and 8, and the 2 arcade titles that we spoke about just a few minutes ago. Then we have the Modern collections with Legacy Collection 1, which I also fucking have. This contains all the first 6 games. Collection 2, which has 7 through 10 with all the DLC included. And finally, double up for the Switch called Mega Man Collection 1 through 2, which has everything. And I also own that because, again, I'm a piece of shit and I keep giving Capcom my money because I fucking love Mega Man.
And that's really it. There were tons of mobile games, and honestly, they aren't even worth talking about. They did a bunch of games like Mega Man Tennis, Diver, Sprite Logic, you name it, they did it. And there were even strategy games made, some for China only and some for Taiwan only. All in all, Mega Man was a mega part of our childhoods, or else we wouldn't be here so willing to talk about them.
The sheer difficulty of these games gave us a challenge to strive to be better, long before we knew the future challenges of adulthood that would come our way. It was a controller, a big TV, and the early morning smell of toast and the sound of morning cartoons. It was life, back when life was just a little bit easier.
And even though Mega Man isn't really a big deal like he was during my favorite era of gaming, those memories are still embedded in us like no other. So much so that returning to it again as an adult, I miss those times. But I know the secrets, I know the games like the back of my hand. Capcom continues to make badass games, but they don't seem to care quite as much about the Blue Bomber like they used to. Either way, Mega Man was a major part of Capcom's success and remains to be a cultural icon to this day.
That's a lot of games. That's a lot of money to buy those games. I'm not looking forward to that. In fact, I might buy a few of those legacy collections because I feel like it might save me a little bit of money on the end. But thank you so much to everybody who came and helped out. The only person that we didn't have that usually works with us was Farty, who you might know as Indie Kebab, who is our audio engineer who took a break. So if you heard some mistakes in the audio, I tried my best to kind of fill in those gaps. And I know it's been a long time since we released a video. COVID has totally fucked up everything for everybody. Also, I got out of the military, so that gives me a chance to make more videos and do more of the things I love to do every single day. So hopefully we'll be putting out some more videos. We're going to be bringing in some new series, so keep a lookout. I know that the next one I want to work on is a Ready Go Gaming Show special, which I think is about Vic Takai, which is a very, very small company, a minor footprint on the video game industry. So yeah, As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Hit that subscribe button because it's absolutely free. And I don't know if the bell is there to remind you anymore, but pay attention to the new videos. I promise that we're gonna make a lot more, all right? Sound good? Fantastic! As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortifier out.
Yeah.